Hi, this is Brian with ActiveMelody.com. In this week's guitar lesson, we're going to be playing the chord changes, as they say. So we're going to be taking a jazzy blues composition, and without a jam track or anything underneath it, we're going to be able to play a lead that's going to have meaning and be in context just by tracing the notes out of those chord shapes. And so I'm going to explain all of that note for note as we break down this lesson over the course of 2 videos. In this video, we'll take a look at the first half. If you'd like to watch the second half and get the tablature for this lesson and the on-screen tab viewer, which is interactive, you can loop it, you can slow it down, all of that stuff, you can get that by going to ActiveMelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP298. Alright, so we're going to learn a lot of information in these videos and break everything down in this composition note for note. So at the end of this, you're going to have this cool blues composition that you can play by yourself, for other people, and you can also use it to practice. But your goal should be to not just memorize the notes, but to try and understand it. Even if you can't understand all of it, just little parts of it that you can start to play with other things. You can play with other jam tracks and other keys. And the reason for that is memorizing the guitar will only get you so far as a guitar player. But if you want to be a real guitar player and really be able to sit in with other people and play any kind of music, you have to start to understand why notes work, not just memorizing them. So kind of keep that in mind as we go through this. Some of this may be in your wheelhouse, some of it may not, but that's okay. As long as you start to understand it, it'll start to file away in your head, and it all kind of starts to make sense over time. You become a product of all of that knowledge. Your playing does. So let's talk about the song structure. So this is played in the key of B. And it's not your typical 1-4-5 blues. There's a minor 2 chord that's thrown in as well. So let me demonstrate. So if we're playing the chord structure, now we're not going to be playing any chords in this. We're just going to be playing single string lead stuff. But I just want to go through the structure of the song. So it's the 1 chord is a B. Then there's your 4 chord, which is an E. And back to the B. Pretty standard blues there. But now instead of going to the 5 chord, we go to the 2 chord, the minor 2. That's a C sharp minor, by the way. And then the 5 chord, which is an F sharp 7. So, and then back to the 1. Now the reason I'm mentioning that the chord structure here is that's a much more sophisticated sounding blues to me. And you hear that in more of it's more of a jazzy way of playing the blues. Is it jazz? Is it blues? It's somewhere in between. You could argue that it's either. But remember that 2 chord to the 5 chord and then back to the 1 chord on the turnaround. That's something that you hear quite often, and it sounds a lot more sophisticated. So when you're playing lead, even if it's a 1-4-5, even if the band is just doing a 1-4-5, you can start slipping in some notes from that 2 chord and then go to your 5 chord and back to your 1 chord, and it's still going to fit in. It's going to give you kind of an out-of-the-box type sound. So the way that I started this then was with a turnaround, classic blues turnaround. Now we're going to connect that back to our 1 chord so that we can play this in any key. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to visualize the 1 chord, which is where we would play. If this is just a B chord, you're just barring on the 7th fret, and then these 3 fingers are making up your E chord shape. Now if I look at that chord shape, I can look at where my ring finger and my pinky are. They're both in the 9th fret. Now if I were to play strings 1 and 3 in the 9th fret, it looks like that. Now I'm hybrid picking, so I'm picking on the 3rd string, plucking with my ring finger on the 1st string, but I'm going to slide up 2 frets, so I'm going to start there. But again, I'm connecting it back here in my mind. And you'll see why as we go through this. But we're going to come up here, and then we're going to come down 1 fret. So we're just going to keep the 2 fingers in the same fret. We're just going to slide them down. And then 3-1, again, that's on the 9th fret. So let's back it up from the beginning. We have, and then we come down to this. Now this is just the same as your bar chord. If I just played strings 3 and 1, that's all I'm doing. I don't need the full chord though, so I'm just going to put my middle finger on the 8th fret 3rd string, my index finger's on the 7th fret 1st string, and I'm picking them both at the same time. That's why hybrid picking is so critical. So that's the turnaround, and then our 5 chord. And to play that, that's our F sharp 7 chord. these fingers are making up the C chord shape. Think of a C chord down in first position. Then we just put our pinky there on the 3rd string, 9th fret. We're going to play the middle 4 strings. Start with the 5th string, and then play the rest of the chord. That's just your standard 7 chord shape. So now, you've got that. Now, why I said to connect it back to the chord shape, even though we weren't playing the chord, is if I told you to play that turnaround now in the key of G, you should be able to do that pretty easily. You can play your G chord. You got to just take everything the same way we did it here. So play your G chord with a bar. Don't play the G like that. Play it here. And then look. There's your turnaround. Now you can do that in any key. And the way that I started this was with a little harmonized melody that goes... I have no idea where that came from, that melody. If somebody knows and could leave that in the comments, I'd be very curious. It was sort of stuck in my head, and I ended up working it into this thing. But it sounds kind of cool. It sounds like, I don't know, it made me think of like Lonnie Johnson type blues kind of thing. But all I'm doing actually is I'm playing 3 notes out of the major scale for B. So if you think of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, the major scale for B, that's all I'm really doing is playing that, but they're harmonized. So to do that, we're going to start with our middle finger on the 7th fret, 6th string. Index finger is on the 6th fret, 5th string. So think of that as shape number 1, and then shape number 2 looks like this. It's the same thing, but there's a fret in between our fingers now. So now I've got my ring finger on the 9th fret, 6th string, and my index finger is on the 7th fret, 5th string. So we have shape 1, shape 2. Now we're going to take shape 2 and move it up 1 fret, and then up 1 fret again. Okay, so now we have... Actually, I just hit that note out of it, which would be the 11th fret, 6th string. Now that's walking chromatically, so we're starting here. That would be the major scale like this, but we added that middle step there, and we're going to be doing that quite a bit as we go through this lead stuff. You're going to see me filling in. I always think of it like a dot to dot. You're filling in you're coloring in between the lines there and adding those passing notes, and a lot of this that we're going to be playing, it has these passing notes. So once we get up to here, I stopped, and just to kind of reposition my hand more than anything, and I played that. Now let me show you how to play it, and then I'll show you how to think about it. We're going to bar strings 5 and 4 here on the 9th fret. I'm going to play the 5th string and do a hammer on to the 11th fret 5th string, and then play the 9th fret 4th string. And what that is, if we go back to our 1 chord, which is the key of the song that we're playing in, key of B, I'm just looking at this little box that happens here off of this chord shape. And I explained this in so many lessons, I don't want to beat that point up. But that's what this is. This is just the major pentatonic scale. This would be the bottom part of pattern 4. But you can see where those notes relate to your chord shape. That's a huge takeaway. Even if you learn nothing else, you can start to play all kinds of really cool leads just using this little box here between these 2 frets. So this would be the 9th fret and the 11th fret on string 6, 5, and 4. Okay, so from the beginning, the other thing I should mention is I'm using some palm muting. So I'm letting this part of my hand rest on the strings back here, so they sound more of have more of a thud instead of a ring. So you have, and there's that another stop after that. Now this is where I get into this real flowy lick, and there's no breaks in this, so we're going to go right from the 1 chord, we're going to flow into the 4 chord. And what's happening here in my mind is I'm picturing the minor pentatonic scale pattern 1. I always use that as a home base, and that's just because that was like the first thing that I learned. So everything that I learned after that, I always connected it back to that because that's the one thing I knew, and so I could always kind of, as I learn new things, I can say, well, how does that relate to the thing I already knew? So I don't want to try and influence the way that your thought process works, but that's how mine works. And so that'll make this easy, as if we're playing this song in the key of B, and we're thinking of pattern 1 of the minor pentatonic scale. A lot of you already know that. So now what you need to do if you want to make your playing sound a little more sophisticated is fill in the gaps in between those notes, in between those frets, like this. So you can see what's happening there. Is you're starting to get much more of a chromatic sound, which some of it sounds wrong, but you can't think of it that way. You have to think of those notes as sort of passing notes. They're just on the way to where you're going, but because they might be a little out of key in just a moment, it's okay because it's just a passing thing. It doesn't last for long, and it colors your playing and it makes it sound really cool. So what I'm doing then is that, and then I've added also, this will be on the 10th fret 3rd string, the blue note. So now you've got that note thrown in as well. And it's a combination of all of those notes that give you that more sophisticated sound. So when I started this next phrase, you can see that all that is chromatically going from here. That's what it would look like, but I'm going up to here because I'm still stuck in that minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1. It doesn't sound like the minor pentatonic scale anymore, and it's actually not, but that's where my head is. Those are still the boundaries, the walls of the house that I'm still playing in. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So we're going to start here on the 8th fret 3rd string, and then 9th fret, and then the 10th fret, all in the 3rd string. And then we're going to come up to the 7th fret 2nd string, and then walk it back down. 10th fret, 9th fret on the 3rd string, and then we come down to the 7th fret 3rd string and do a hammer on to the 8th fret 3rd string. So from the beginning of that, it sounds like that. Now that's a great little phrase. Even if you don't learn anything else, just stop there and analyze that phrase. How does that connect back to this? If we're playing it in A, now you got this little kind of jazzy, bluesy lick that you can start to work with. You can take just those notes and you could really start to do a lot with that and just enhance your playing quite a bit with that. So now from here we're going to go. So that would be the 9th fret, 7th fret on the 4th string. And then when I play that 7th fret 4th string, I'm going to do a bar so that I can come up and play the 3rd string. And then I'm going to go back to the 9th fret 4th string, and then watch this. There's another chromatic passing note. So it's just 9, 8, 7 on the 4th string. So backing up, we have... And then watch this. So now I came all the way down. Now I know I'm going to the 4 chord. I can hear it in my head. The 4 chord is coming. It's right there. That's what I'm picturing. I'm picturing the E9 chord. And look at where my index finger is in that chord. I can see that. Even though I didn't play the chord, I could see that light up in my mind, that's where that note is right there. Now I was just here. So all I'm going to do is go and slide up to that note. So I'm going to go down to the 5th fret 4th string and slide up to the 6th fret 4th string. So let's back up. That whole phrase now goes. All right, there goes your 4 chord. Now that could be overwhelming depending on where you are as a learner. But you just want to take that phrase, everything that we just learned there, and now start playing that in different keys. Play that in the key of G. Challenge yourself to play that over a G chord. Imagine you're playing a blues in G. And how would you work it? Okay, let's take it back from the beginning. We've learned a lot already. So let's take it from that turnaround. Okay, now from here, I walked right up the minor pentatonic scale and into the major pentatonic scale. Let me show you the notes. So from this 6th fret 4th string, I'm going to go like this. it's actually pretty easy to play from a technical standpoint. So it's 6 up to the 9th fret on the 4th string, and then we're just going to do 7, 9, 7, 9, 7, 9 on the 3rd string, the 2nd string, and the 1st string. So we have. So we're playing over the 4 chord at this point, which is our E chord. Now I showed you that E9 chord shape there, and that note that's in the E9. But one trick that I learned a long time ago was if you play using the A chord shape. So this is out of caged. So I'm going to play an E chord using the A chord shape. And I look at where these 2 fingers are. My index finger and my pinky. Now some of you would make that with your ring finger. But look at where those 2 fingers are. They're on the 7th fret and the 9th fret when you play that chord. That should sound familiar. Remember those notes we were just tracing? Those are notes that are really in that chord shape. And then you can go all the way up to the 1st fret. So that's where I got that little run. And I use that quite a bit over when I'm playing over that chord shape. So if I were playing over a C using the same technique. See, I can land right there and get the 7th out of that chord. And so that's kind of where that comes from in my mind. Now from here I went. So I slid up 1 note. So that's going up to the 10th fret 1st string. And then back. And we go right back down the way we came up. But going up to that note, if you think of the E7, that note, that's what that note is. And so that's one way to look at it. The other way you can look at it is, that's just in minor pentatonic scale pattern 1, right? For the key of the song. Now that wouldn't be playing the chord changes, but that's another way you could do this. So there's different ways you can look at a note when it presents itself. But I could just hear that in my head. My ear knew if I slid up just 1 fret, it would give me that bluesy sound. So we walked it back down to the 9th fret 3rd string, and then I go down to the 7th fret 3rd string and do a hammer on to the 8th fret 3rd string. And then once I do that, we're back to the 1 chord. Because look at that. That's the note in the chord. Now after I did that, I kept my finger barred here on the 7th fret, first 3 strings, did the hammer on. Ring finger goes down on the 9th fret, 4th string, and then my pinky comes down on the 9th fret 2nd string while these other fingers are there. So really all I'm doing is I'm playing these 3 notes. That'd be 4, 3, and 2. That's the D7 chord shape if you think of it down here. So what that does is that converts my B chord to a B6 chord. You get a little more of a jazzy feel. So that's what I did to get to that chord. And then once I hit it, so it was an upstroke with the right hand, I slid it down a fret and then back up to where I started. And that's another little kind of jazzy technique, is you can always go down a half step and then back to where you started. You can do that for single strings as well. Even as you're walking down the scale, you can go down a half step and then back to your note. That's another technique that just makes your playing that much more advanced sounding. And it's pretty easy to do because you know where you're going. You just start a half step and slide up to it. Okay, so that's what I did. Now after that, I came down and went and played into the. Now what I'm doing is I'm playing the major pentatonic scale for B, because we're back to the 1 chord, which is our B chord. So then I was thinking of pattern 1 of the major pentatonic scale for B. Pattern 1 is the same as your minor pentatonic scale. You just slide down this direction 3 frets from your minor, and that will give you your major over all your patterns. So that's what I played, that little kind of a bluesy run. So I'm starting here with my ring finger on the 4th fret 4th string, sliding up to the 6th fret 4th fret 3rd string, and then my ring finger comes to the 6th fret 3rd string, and I do a slide up one, back down, and then a pull off down to the 4th fret 3rd string. So all that's done with picking it once. So, and then back to the 6th fret, and then back to the 4th fret. And then I think I threw in the 6th fret 4th string. But you can see where those notes are coming from. They're just right here between the 4th fret and the 6th fret in that pattern 1 of the major pentatonic scale. So you don't have to be too literal with the terminology. I know sometimes people say, well, this is a blues song, therefore I must play the blues scale, or I must play the minor pentatonic scale because it's blues. You can mix and match this stuff. You can jump down into the major and back into the minor, and that's what real good players do. They're not thinking, they're not locked into one or the other. Let's back up from the beginning and play up to that point. I'll play through it slowly. Now this is where the song goes to the 2 chord, that minor 2 that I was telling you about. That's a C sharp minor. Now I was down here. Now I was thinking of the minor chord here. Well, you can play C sharp minor here. So the next thing that I played was tracing the notes out of that chord shape. So look at this chord shape. This is, if you think of the caged system, this would be where you're barring on the 4th fret, and then these 3 fingers make up your A minor chord shape. So I can play. And hear how minor that sounds right there? And then we go right back into a major thing as the chord changes. But to play that, it's the 4th fret, 2nd string. I do a hammer onto the 5th fret, 2nd string, and then back to the 4th fret. That's the 6th fret to the 4th fret on the 3rd string, and then I'm down to the 6th fret, 4th string. And that's a great little takeaway, as simple as that lick is. So if I were playing in the key of E minor, for example, you can even bend into your notes, and you can do all this cool stuff just with those, just a handful of notes there. This sounded kind of like a Dave Gilmour lick. But anyway, back here. Then the song goes to the 5 chord, remember? It goes. So when I came up here, I was thinking of your chord shape here, which would be your F sharp 7 chord. Playing it this way. But I didn't make the whole chord, I just did that. So I slid went from the 6th fret up to the 8th fret chromatically, and then the 6th fret 3rd string. So we have, then we go back to the 8th fret 4th string, and then I came down to the 4th fret 4th string, and then I did this little hammer on. Actually, I played it like that. So that would be the 4th fret to the 6th fret on the 4th string, and then strings 3 and 2 on the 4th fret. Now I could actually play 3, 2, and 1, because if you look at what that is, it's the same as that B6 chord that we were playing earlier, right? It's just a different way to play it. I don't want to go down too many tangents here, but that's another thing I could have done there. Okay, so from and then, so this is an awesome takeaway lick. So look at this. So we have that. That'd be the 4th fret 3rd string, 6th fret 4th string, 4th fret 4th string, and then middle finger goes down on the 5th fret 5th string. Do a quick hammer onto the 6th fret 5th string, back to the 4th fret 4th string, and then back to the 6th fret 4th string. So we have, back to the 4th fret, 4th string, and then the 3rd fret. I'm sorry, then the 3rd string on the 4th fret. So all together we have. Now that lick is awesome. I use that all the time. Look at where that lick is in relation to your B chord. So that's your 1 chord. Look at it connected to this chord shape. Since we're way down here, we're way away from this chord shape, we got to go to our next one that's close to that lick. And so what I'm looking at is this, that's the A chord shape. And look where my pinky is on that 4th fret. A light bulb should have just went off for a bunch of people right there. When you look at that chord shape, okay, I can play that lick now off of that chord shape. So now if I was playing in D, you can start to use that, and that works in country, bluegrass, blues, it works in everything. So that's why you got to connect this stuff back to chord shapes. Let's so after that, then I came up here and went and played the 5 chord, which is your F sharp 7 chord. That's the chord we already played at the beginning, where we're playing those middle 4 strings. And that's the first time through. So that's a lot of information, and you've got a lot you can work with there. I'm going to save the rest for part 2. We're going to go over the same structure, but we're going to do it in a different way. We're going to play the go into some different things. We'll play this an octave higher in that one. But anyway, let me back up and play through this one more time, this first half, and then I'll see you in part 2. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the alert bell if you haven't done that for YouTube. I'm always putting out lessons like this. I've been doing it for many, many years now, and I do it every Friday. So that way we can stay in touch and you can know when there's something new. All right, here we go from the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1.